Hi, everybody. We are live. Let's see. No one's in yet. So you're in. We're going to give it a minute. Hi there. We're going to give it a minute for people to come in. Welcome. I'm super excited to have this conversation tonight. Donna will be joining us in a second. We just had a little bit of a technical snafu, which is why we had to jump out and jump back on. So just give us a minute. Above this live, there is a link that asks you to approve StreamYard. So please click on that link to approve StreamYard so that we can see your comments. We can't see your comments unless you approve StreamYard. And then make a comment. Let me know you're here. Put your name there because sometimes they come up as Facebook user. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
We're just going to wait on some people to come in.
Okay.
You guys could also share this to your page so that we can get some other ladies to join us in this discussion. Hi, Mom. Hi, Merle. And guys, there's Jen. Hi, Jen from Utah. So we're just going to give it a minute to let people jump on. And please, if you guys could just share this to your page, that would be great. Someone just put a comment, can you see me? But it's coming across as a Facebook user. So you might want to put your name in. Okay. Is that Debbie Ellis? Hi, Debbie. All right, ladies, we're just going to give it a couple more minutes to give people a chance to come in. And then I'll introduce you to my friend and guest, Donna El Armale. This is kind of cool. I feel techie, but I know I'm not. Oh, I feel techie, but I know I am not. So please share this to your page. And just out of respect for everyone that's here right at 7 o'clock, we're just going to jump in and get started. I want to first introduce Donna. Donna is a licensed marriage and family therapist whom I have known for years and respect quite a bit. And she has terrific experience with both grief and trauma. And I thought with everything that's happened in the last few months, those are two things we are all definitely dealing with. So Donna, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Okay. My name is Donna El Armale, as Dana has told you. I have been licensed. I've been working with clients since 2002. So, and I've worked in a number of populations. I also teach at Cal State Dominguez Hills last 14 years and some different other colleges and about 15 to 16 different subjects. I've lost track at this point. But I'm known for the grief and loss class that I teach. And so I do have a practice in Mar Vista, which is in Los Angeles, kind of the Venice, Palms area, and it's thriving. And even now it's thriving. So people come in with various concerns, and grief and loss tends to be underneath and they're not even aware. And so one of the things that we have all acknowledged as therapists, when we all had to switch to video conferencing and go have stay-at-home orders and have to, follow these new rules, we were dealing with a collective grief. we were all grieving the life that we once knew. And we kind of just took for granted our freedom to be able to walk around, go to crowds, go to concerts, do whatever. And there's a trauma in that too, because we had to be, I personally was not even concerned until they said school, we weren't going to be in school face to face anymore. And it took me a while to really kind of connect to that. And then my anxiety went up because I was concerned that we wouldn't be able to get groceries, and I didn't want to fight with people and all that stuff. So there's a lot of anxiety about this virus and about Corona and how long this will last. And we're all feeling this at the same time. But now we add the protesting and what's come up, and now has become this has always been going on. What we're protesting and what's being protested has always gone on, but it has hit people's consciousness. So we are dealing with 2 layers of anxiety and trauma at this point.
I know for me, hold on one second, ladies. Yeah. There's some people who are texting me that they can't get into the event. Oh. And God knows I have no idea why. But let me just say this. I remember I was about 5 years old. I had just started kindergarten, and we were going to go visit one of my mom's friends whom I hadn't met. And she said, get dressed. You guys are going to come with me to meet my friend Leslie today. And I just looked at her and said, what color is she? And my mom, without missing a beat, said, does it matter? And that one line really framed what I thought about race. I mean, it was one mommy moment where she was able to teach my little brain in an indirect way that race didn't matter. And as we all know, it does matter. But I think what she was trying to say to me and how I took it as a 5-year-old was, we don't judge people by the color of their skin. Yeah. So I wanted to take the opportunity, because I've been home and really sad about all the things that are happening in the world and upset. And yet I'm a single mother. I provide for my daughter, and there's COVID. And I don't feel like I can risk my health to go out and demonstrate. But I thought, this is a way that I can help. I can talk to other moms. I can help other moms to work through the issues that we're having. So my first question for you is, what is implicit bias?
Implicit bias. This is bias that we have. It's based in stereotypes, and that we're not aware of. And it factors in how we behave, our perceptions of people, how we perceive, how we experience certain situations, and a belief system. So you can have biases that you're completely unaware of. And this is influenced by our culture, by your family, by media, by all kinds of things. And again, it's based on stereotypes, and stereotypes are just a shorthand, a way of categorizing people. When we're children and developing, we're children and we're developing, we categorize things. We learn 4-legged animals are dogs. Well, then we start learning that, okay, no, that could be a cat, that can be a horse, that can be a cow. And then we learn that there are variances of dogs. All dogs don't look the same. So we use this as a shorthand to associate and just to remember. And this goes along, and this speaks to stereotypes. It's how our brain works. We categorize people as a shorthand to get to know people. But what we don't do is let go of those belief systems sometimes. And we hold on to them, or we bury them, and it shows up in our behaviors because we don't have any other information except the stereotypes we heard. And everybody has stereotypes. Everyone's heard them. If you believe them or not, you've heard them. Everyone has implicit bias. So the first step is acknowledging it and figuring out what those are. And that's a process.
Absolutely. I loved, I think all of you saw the circles, the graphic with the circles that came out, that I used for this, because I think that, in moving through towards a solution, we have to start asking different questions. Mm-hmm. And I have to start the conversation by saying this is going to be something that is on a continuum. We've been over here, and now we're trying to move to a new future, which we want to be better, but it's not fully defined. So we have got to keep asking each other questions. So while we're in here, I see people coming in. Hi, Gail. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you guys for coming. Can you guys please share this? Isla, share it. Just share it with your friend group, because we want as many mamas that can possibly benefit from our conversation today as possible. And hi, Alice. Hi, Debbie. Thank you guys for coming. So, Donna.
Yes.
We're all grieving.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is, how much do I share with my daughter? Yeah. And how much do we share at the different ages? Because she's, at the beginning of COVID, I was a freak. I was getting up. I was watching the news. The news was on all day. We were locked in the house. We had what we needed. It's like in mama bear battle mode. And she started to break out in hives. Like, she started to get stressed out. Yeah. And she wasn't speaking about anything, but she was hearing all of the noise coming into the house. And so I realized pretty quickly now, when I listen to the news for my own sanity and for her sake, I limit what is coming into the house. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's understandable, first of all, that you were, you wanted information. I was on social media like way more than I'm normally, just constantly in the phone looking for more information. And we were all anxious. Children are very instinctual. So they feel your energy. The way we learn, we overhear conversation. Your children are listening if you can see them or not. They are paying attention, even if you think they're playing and distracted. And think back to your own childhood and how you learned about things. And maybe you only got pieces of that information. So when you tell the story later as an adult, your parents or someone else goes, no, that's not what happened. And they fill in all the gaps. So really, how you manage this with your child depends on your child, the age. You got to remember where they are developmentally. So a 5-year-old, these are pretty basic, and it's very much egocentric. It's about them. They think they caused something. If they do this, this will magically happen. They really believe in that direct cause and effect, even if it's magical and doesn't make sense, but it's their own rationale. That's where their brain's at. As they get a little older, they need really concrete information, but it still needs to be very simplified. You hit teenagers, you can have more adult conversations with them. They're much more mature. But again, it depends on your kid. If you got a 15-year-old, one 15-year-old could be really mature and very intellectual and have good, emotional health, pretty healthy emotional health, and is naturally and understandably feeling a little more anxious. You can have a different conversation than with a 15-year-old that maybe is a little more emotionally delayed. And not that they are delayed, but they're just not there yet. And so you have to manage your children's anxiety based on what you know about them and where they are developmentally. The older they are, the more complex conversations you can have. But I think it's a real good idea too to reduce the noise. I even tell adults this, like, at some point, turn off the news. Just turn it off, watch something funny, go outside for 15 minutes. I teach, I had 500 students. I was like, go outside for 15 minutes, just get some sun. Don't stay glued. And I even had to put the phone down and change the channel and do those things. So remember, we're adults and we feel that anxiety. The children feel it compounded.
Yeah.
It's compounded. So really just pay attention to your child. If you start seeing their behavior, if like highs or they start acting out or regressing, that's a sign. It always shows up in their behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, from a mom perspective, be ready for the hard questions. 2 days ago, Hannah asked me what was the Confederacy, because I was listening to the story about NASCAR taking down the Confederate flag. And so we had to go through that whole what is the Confederacy? So be prepared for those questions. And what I want to say to the moms from a mom point of view is it's okay if you don't have the answers, because your willingness to go and find those answers with your kids is going to show them who you are as someone who cares about race relations and being anti-racist.
Yeah.
Tell me, what are some of the things? I think you had a story that you shared with me about being in high school and coming into one of those race situations, because you have a unique background with race and ethnicity.
Yeah, a little about me. My parents are immigrants. They're from Syria and Lebanon. They came here 3 months before I was born, so they're very Arabic. We eventually ended up in Portland, Oregon, and there is a large Syrian community there they're all related somehow or another, all from the same village. But my parents were a religion that was not common to the area. And my father was Lebanese, and he was kind of like the outsider, because even though it was the Syrian Lebanese club, officially, he wasn't one of the certain families. So I had these like 4 identities, and then I was very Americanized because of the religion. So I always felt like an outsider. And depending on who was looking at me, what the perception was, what their experience, I would be treated differently. I'd be perceived differently. Growing up, I was Italian, or they would go, "What are you?" And they just, I'd always get that "What are you?" question. When I came here to California, everyone thought I was Mexican or Latina, and people get mad because I didn't speak Spanish. And I'm like, sorry. And so, some people thought I was Creole or I was mixed. It depends who's looking at me. And then some people just think I'm white or I'm Jewish. The latest one is Jewish. And I'm not offended by any of it. It's just, it's just an interesting thing because it makes me ambiguous. And there's a privilege, but there's also a barrier to that in a conflict. So the privileges is I get treated differently than maybe my friends do that are with me. And I can mouth off a little bit more, and I can say a little bit more sometimes and get away and not fear. But I also can experience discrimination, and people I can't always put my finger on it, but I can have that experience.
Yeah.
Or that critique about my looks or something, So
tell me the story about you were on a bus.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm high school, sophomore year, probably sophomore, it might be junior year, but I was we moved to that area sophomore year. So predominantly white, Caucasian. There was probably maybe 3 Black kids in the whole school, and maybe 1 was mixed. I don't remember. They weren't even I don't know. There wasn't a lot of diversity. And I'm sitting on the bus, and I'm extremely shy and just quiet. And so this girl was telling this story about some girls that I guess stole, because I think we had jobs then. We're all working at the mall, had stolen something. And she kept emphasizing they were Black. She kept emphasizing. And inside, I can just feel this disgust. And just like, I don't like this. I just felt it, but I was too afraid to say anything. And this other girl spoke up, and I was so relieved. She goes, "Is there a reason?" She said something to the effect of, what does them being Black have to do with it? Or is there a reason why you're bringing up that they're Black? Something to that effect. She called her out on it. And of course you start backpedaling. People start backpedaling a little bit and trying to explain themselves. But I was just so relieved. But it was such an uncomfortable feeling that honestly, when I graduated from school, I couldn't wait. I actually moved out of the area, and I moved into more diverse areas. Not that Portland was very diverse at the time. So it was just a way, because I just did not feel a part of, and I could not manage it. Yeah.
So one of my friends posted something, and she really got slammed on social media. She called them microaggressions, the things that people said to her for being non-Black and speaking up for Black people were horrific. Some of the people that made comments on my post for this event were horrific. And the thing that I've come to is it's people like us that are on this group in this call that are going to be able to make the change. And the change is a marathon. It is not a sprint. But asking people questions, and when someone says something that's overtly racist, it's up to us to challenge them. And I'm not suggesting, getting in full on fights, but you've got to challenge people
Mhm.
thinking, like, why would you think that? So ladies, what are your questions? Post them in the comments. Like, what are the questions about what you can do? We're going to talk a little bit about that. My biggest question right now is I have friends who live in a pretty homogenous community. There isn't a lot of ethnic diversity. So how can they be part of the change short of, marching up and down the street,
Yeah, I think just educating yourself. First, looking at yourself, learning what do you know, because what we learned in the textbooks is a version of history. You can't capture everything that happened, but some things were intentionally left out. I mean, I'll be honest. I remember, the enslavement of people was probably a paragraph or two. There's just nothing that I have to educate myself later, and there's still so much more. Still learning more. And start with yourself. What are your biases? Do you have any biases? You probably do. We all do. What is your stereotypes? But also just educating in that when something comes up or someone says something, it's like, hey, did you ever think about like this? And there's a way of educating people kindly.
Yeah.
And if they're open to it, they'll think
Or
about
maybe
it.
even challenging them.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But if they get really super defensive and they want to engage in a fight, then no one's going to get hurt, to be honest. You can just say, look, this is where I stand. This is how I see it. This is what my experience is and what I'm learning about it. I'm just bringing this to your attention. You can do what you want with that. And then you can make your decisions about that. But, it's just learning. And also, if you have children, exposing them to other cultures and not just the festivals that they do, because a lot of that is for show, but there are people that will share their culture and their history. Exposing your children to different media, different books that are not mainstream, different just different ways that you've got to be involved in their education, because school is just not going to do it. They're just not. But really be involved and being educated together.
Yeah, like buying your children multi-ethnic toys.
Toys, yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, I worked at Mattel before I became a therapist, and every holiday party, they give us the holiday Barbie, and they were the original white Barbies, but they would have a little pile of the black Barbies. And so I would intentionally go, can I have that one? Can I have the black Barbie? And so, and then sometimes I would get both because, it was for collectors. I still have them stored away. But it just tells you that we have this lean towards the majority culture and the dominant culture.
We do.
Yeah.
So good question came up from Debbie, and she said, how do you respond to others when they tell you they're tired of this whole movement, Black Lives Matter?
We'll just say, well, Black people are tired of discrimination. This is what they live in. They don't get to just turn it off. Yeah. There's a really older book, I think it was in the 60s, called Black Like Me. And I read it as a younger, probably in like my early 20s or before I turned 20. I revisited that like 20 years ago, 10, maybe 15, 20 years ago, and I read it differently. I got more out of it. And it was a white man that decided, I want to understand what the experience is, and darkened his skin, and lived and went through the South. And he was very mindful that I can take a break from this. I can step back from this. And unfortunately, but if you are a person of brown or black skin, you can't let it go. And what you say to them is like, well, they're tired of this lifelong and this historical discrimination and treatment. You have an option of turning off. They don't.
Yeah. And I think here's what I say. It's totally okay to be tired of hearing about Black Lives Matter. I'm tired of hearing about COVID. There are several things in this country I'm tired of hearing about. But the way that we can really make the change, those are not the people who you're going to enroll to advocate in this fight. And I think we all, we have to weigh and measure our energy and where we're going to where we are going to put it, because there are people who just are not going to get behind this movement. They don't really care because it doesn't affect them. And it's not a problem if it's not my problem.
Yeah.
But I do believe that the longer we go and the more dialogue we can have, I think the best thing you can do is have dialogue around race in your home. Watch movies around race, read books around race. And listen, I lead a group called the Single Mom Tribe. We don't have a lot of time to jump into books, but there are a couple of movies that I'm going to recommend. One is Mercy. The other one, and it's free on Amazon right now. It's streaming. Is it Just Mercy, Donna?
I think it's Just Mercy.
Just Mercy.
Yeah, it just came out.
And the other one is on Netflix. And
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's called 13.
13. Yeah.
And if you want to get an idea about what privilege is, you will be able to see that firsthand. And those, where you have older kids, those are great movies to watch for mature teenagers. Those are great movies to watch and to have discussions around. You know, I'm going to just share with you something I don't really share that often. And that is that, you know, I have had run-ins with police officers, and yet I don't believe all police officers are bad. My father was a police officer. He was one of the first Black police officers in Pasadena, California. But later on in life, he was also beaten to within an inch of his life by the police. So the biggest thing is when the thing that you guys will begin to understand as you watch these movies, we can have more conversations like this. You will begin to understand that the Black experience is very different. The things that you take for granted are just different. At one point in my life, I was dating someone who was white, and we went to the store and he was buying things, and we were at the checkout, and this is pre-debit card. He went to write a check and he said, "Oh, I don't have my ID." And as soon as he said it, I started walking for the door like, "We got to go out to the car and get your ID." And I'm out the door and I turn around and he's not there. And I go to walk back into the store and he's coming out with the merchandise. I said, "He took your check without ID?" And he said, he just looked at me and he was like, "Yeah, of course he did." I said, "That is white privilege." Yeah. Because he never would have taken my check. Yeah. They're very subtle, Debbie said it, microaggressions where people treat you differently. Yeah. So, there's a great question, Rachel. I love this. It's like, how do I teach my sons about white privilege and have them not feel guilty? Feeling guilty, it's not, you have to help them understand it's not their guilt. This is baked into our culture. I know you. I know what kind of mom you are. I know what kind of teacher you are and what kind of person you are. You're a great person who's raising great kids, but this is baked into our culture. Yeah. And what happens is they're with their little friends and someone says something like, "Oh, but that's a Black guy." And that's all it takes. So really important. If you signed up to attend this, you will automatically get a resource guide, which will list the movies we've talked about, some documentaries that are really good. Have any of you guys throw up some hearts if you've heard about the Black Wall Street? Has anyone on this call heard about the Black Wall Street? No hearts. So there's some great history in there. If you didn't sign up for this and you just happen to jump on, this is the link. You can click that and we will send you the information. So you will be able to start having conversations because, again, guys, this is a continuum. This is the beginning of a lot of conversations that we're going to have. And we have to start creating spaces. My heart is just to create a space for people to come together and ask these questions. because you can't call your only black friend anymore. She's tired. It's like, I don't have all the answers. And so that's my next question for you guys. Donna, what do we do when we really don't have answers? There aren't any answers right now.
I mean, it's just, you don't know. It's okay not to know, but research. I can't tell you enough. We have Google and we have the internet at our fingertips. It's on our phone. It's on our watches. It's not hard. It's really not hard. And just start looking at different sources and read different stories about the same incident, about the same things. You make sure you're getting a well-rounded perspective, because there's going to be some on either end of the spectrum. And what I want for you to do is to look at all of it on all spectrums, and just use, we're smart people. We can usually kind of assess and analyze information and just learn, and do this with an open heart and open mind without judgment. Yeah. All of this has to be done open heart, open mind.
That is such an excellent point. And open heart, open mind to other white people who are not on your page.
Yeah.
Because everybody's process and timing is different. But as you educate yourself, the next time you hear someone say something that is out of pocket or racist, you will have the ability to address it in a way that's knowledgeable and loving, because I do think loving is the answer, right?
Yeah.
There's a quote when you go into the Museum of Tolerance in LA, and it says that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Yep. And it's attributed to Edmund Burke, but John F. Kennedy had it in one of his speeches in 1961. And I think what's so powerful about what is happening now is that people aren't doing nothing. But what we're talking about tonight is, how do we transition that march energy? Like, yes, go out and march if that's what you want to do. But what's next? And what's next is, we have to filter what's coming into our homes and into our minds. And I think we have to filter even what we're seeing on the media, because the media is so biased to the right and to the left. It's so hard to find information that's center. And so, we have to use wisdom. And the best way to be able to use that wisdom is to have some knowledge to back it up. So the resources that we're going to send will help you with that. Someone put open heart, open mind, drop preconceived notions. Listen. That's what I'm doing. Whoever you are, I'm sending you a million hearts, because that's absolutely right. And guys, we're doing this. I think that was Debbie Ellis. Thank you, Debbie. We're doing this and having these discussions in unprecedented times. Like, I have been locked in the house with my 9-year-old for 3 months. I was half crazy before all of this started. And now we're processing this pain. And for the Black community, we have been living with this pain all of our lives. This is not new. And now the white community is coming, going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This is so horrible. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Or they're saying, this isn't real. You're overreacting. This guy was a bad guy. This is an isolated incident. So you've got these two camps, if you will. We have got to be knowledgeable enough to plant the right seeds in our kids, to start changing the foundation of how they think about diversity and race in this country. So, Donna, what do you think, about this idea? Like, we want to teach our kids to celebrate diversity and not tolerate it.
Well, I talk about acceptance. When I teach this, I talk about the word tolerance, and we hear about we have to tolerance, but it sounds like you have to tolerate or put up with something. But you talk about acceptance. And so the acceptance is listening, don't have to agree. You don't even have to get it, but understand that that's that person's experience, or that's that person's custom, or that's the food they eat, or this is how they do things, without having to fully get it. Just go and accept that this is different from me, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It works for them, doesn't work for me, and that's okay. But I would teach my students to focus on acceptance of others that are different than them. And that's the emphasis there.
Okay. And then what can we do to take good care of ourselves? Because as moms, I feel like I'm the filter. I'm filtering what's coming in, filtering what she sees. But I also have my own sadness that I'm processing, and my own grief
Yeah.
about the things that have happened. And it can make me exhausted. So what would you say are some things we could do to just practice better self-care?
One is, again, limiting your own exposure. And when you find yourself getting overwhelmed and it's affecting your behavior, especially with your child, and you're getting impatient, just turn it off. Take a deep breath. Breathing is really important. Breathing can be very magical, and it can really calm you, because the first thing we do when we're stressed is breathe really shallow, and we breathe from the chest. And so imagine a balloon, and you're going all the way down below your belly button, and fill that up. Fill up that balloon. So that means you got to breathe in slow through the nose, up, and then breathe out really slow through the mouth. And you drop your shoulders doing that. Even if you do that 3 times, you'll be good. You can do it in front of your kid. You can do it in front of your child. You can be like, you can do it in meetings. You could do it when you're talking to somebody. They probably won't pay attention unless they're really, really looking at you. But breathe. First thing is breathe. The second is that moms are busy. I know this. But when you put your kid to bed, don't just collapse or pull out the iPad or just veg in front of the TV. Sometimes take a few minutes just to be still. Just to be still. And if that means watching something mindless, that's fine. Or maybe engage in a guided meditation. Meditation can be challenging, so you can't completely clear your mind. But even if it's for 5 minutes, do a guided meditation. And they're all over YouTube. There's all kinds of apps. I don't have any one that I recommend. I think you have to figure out which one works for you. And just do that. So make sure you're taking, even if it's 5 and 10 minutes, if you got to go lock yourself in the bathroom, just do that, just take a few minutes to relax and find a routine for when you go to bed, or maybe when you wake up. Maybe you wake up a little earlier than your child, so you can have that moment to have some coffee and just kind of get grounded, and then you start your day. So, yeah.
Okay. And what about the fear? Like, there's so much fear right now and trauma.
Yeah.
One of my friend's sons was treated really poorly, and he was at work and he had to go home.
Yeah.
And it was a traumatic encounter, a very traumatic encounter for him and for her, right? So he's a young adult. How should she talk to him about that trauma and help him process it so that he can kind of move through it, as opposed to putting it away?
That's a tough one. And I don't know if I have the right answer to this, but I guess I would think about allowing him to process his feelings and his fear. Let him have them. They're valid, because it's a real fear and it's a reality, but also remind him that this is not everybody. There are really a lot of good people. You can have 100 people that are great, and one person can ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
One person can make it so bad. And to remind your child, just because one person from this particular group acts like this, it doesn't mean everyone else is going to. But be aware. And, I have to say, I haven't had my life threatened because of my ethnicity, but so I can't completely speak on that. But it is about first and foremost, you got to be safe, first and foremost. But the feelings, to process that. It could be journaling. Art is amazing, even for adults. Coloring is the most calming thing. And I don't mean the adult coloring books. You can go get the kid coloring books and take yourself back to your childhood with real crayons and everything. There's something very calming about that. But if your child is artistic, or they have any way of expressing themselves, allow them to use that artistic, even poetry, songs. They got to listen to the music really loud. Allow them to be angry. Anger is part of grief. Anger is that shield that comes up to protect us when we're scared and when we're hurt and vulnerable. Allow them to be angry, but don't let them sit in anger. And let them just move through it. Yeah.
And then how do moms handle the kids that want to be out there protesting? Because we all have COVID-19 in the back of our minds.
Yeah. That's a hard decision because I've thought about that too. You know, for some, this is bigger than COVID, but if they feel they have to go, it's like, look, you've got to be safe. I've actually heard of some protests where they actually did like a sit-in, but made it where they'd social distance and be a sit-in. And, you know, so maybe try to find something like that. Talk to them about what's driving them and how they can be a part of it and participate. And I would go with them, to be honest. And just mask up and be safe as you can, and be prepared and let them know, look, because we know some peaceful protests were being tear gassed and there were really some violent things happening to the peaceful protesters, which is unfortunate. So you've got to pay extra attention. As soon as you see a sign of something, get out of there, protect your child. But I think it's also an amazing experience for them to have. And you're modeling this great behavior that they may need to use. Unfortunately, may have to use one day, but it teaches them to stand up for what's right and it's okay. And also find other ways to channel their need to participate because there are different ways to do so.
And I would also say that the guilt, that white guilt, that has to go.
Yeah.
Because guilt doesn't help anyone, right? We all feel bad. We have our own feelings. You know, if you're Black, you feel like, you know, my own anger, frustration, sadness for the way my people have been treated. And I think it's important for me to say, we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it. It just was like, I think I was 40, which is like just yesterday, before I realized that my grandma's family was in California because her father, who was half white, half Black, and he had blue eyes, overheard the Klan in Mississippi making some plans, and they realized that he had overheard. He and his friend ran. He came home, he hid under the house, and from that vantage point could see his buddy who had heard the plans dragged across the street behind a truck, and they killed him. And that night he got a paper bag. He didn't take any clothes. He got like a sack lunch and came to California to stay with his aunt in Monrovia. And that's where my family's been ever since. But that's a story. That wasn't a story that was like passed down with pride. That was just a story that I happened to learn a few years ago. And I think it's the same for white families. The guilt that you're feeling today is not serving you. You got to turn that guilt and you got to let that go, because every time you feel guilty, go learn something else.
Yeah.
Get a movie, read an article, because the more you learn and you understand your own privilege, the easier we're going to be able to move forward.
Absolutely.
But everybody here understands that there's privilege, or they probably wouldn't be here, right? So now you've got to get really good at articulating that so that you can help move your friends forward. And the media does an amazing job of, well, I'll just say that for me, I got onto my work does a Monday morning Zoom call, and I got onto the call the Monday after the riots started in LA, and everyone was talking about all this property damage and how terrible it was that people were, blowing up police cars. And I was enraged. And I still have to show up as a professional woman, but I was furious. And finally I just said, did anyone see the murder? And it was like dead silence. Yeah. But it was in that moment I realized that it just takes a little pushback, and people do say, oh, wait a minute, that is a biased point of view that I'm sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So we are going to wrap up pretty quickly here, but I want you guys to know that A, if you have questions, type them in the chat before we close up. And B, make sure you go to this link here, modernsinglemom.com/change, so that you can get the resource guide.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, Donna. Thank you for sharing.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Cultural competence is a journey. It's not a destination. So we're all learning. Even me, I'm still learning. As much as I've been very mindful, I'm still learning. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. All right. Bye.